Ժողովը, բոլոր սեղանների շուրջ բուրըն քննարկումներ են ընթանում եւ հիմա մենք կզրուցենք Ալեքսանդր Գևորգյանի հետ։ Ալեքսանդրը Հայաստան Սփյուռք միասնականության հանձնախմբի անդամ է, տնտեսագիտության դոկտոր, նա Նյու Յորքի Սենթ Ջոնս համալսարանից է, եկել է Հայաստան, մասնակցում է համաժողովին։ Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me.
So, Alexander, first of all, let me ask you, how do you assess the work of Convention? Is it productive?
I think I'm very impressed by the work. Productive depends how you measure it. I think it is productive because it has brought so many different people together. Really interesting ideas, and people have an opportunity to openly communicate with each other. Whether they agree or disagree, we have a lot of points that we're discussing, right? But I think this is what's critical in our communities, is to have an opportunity to have this intellectually high-level conversation, and which is driven by ideas, as was mentioned earlier today, that it's important to have ideas, it's important to express your thoughts and then see what comes out of it. So yes, generally positive so far.
We can see right now, this is some sort of zip version of Armenians, of Armenia at whole, okay? What are your impressions, especially from here, when you see this? Is it impressive?
It is impressive. I think we could have even more people.
More people?
I think we could have even more people participating. I think there are more willing participants out there. And in the future, maybe connecting them virtually might be an option, because you can't probably fit everyone in a hall, but still, because I hear almost every language, which is another thing. So we're speaking English now, but aside from Armenian, obviously, which is the working language, you know, people are conversing and expressing themselves in whatever language they feel most comfortable in, and the important thing is the thoughts are getting through, and yeah, I think we've accomplished something here already.
Let's talk about the diaspora. We are very much pretty diverse people, and diaspora also is very diverse. Do you believe it is possible to unite them, all of us, around one or two or three or 15 special goals?
It's $1 million question, right? Because you have two Armenians and you come up with 10 opinions.
Sure.
It depends. I'm an economist, so I always say it depends. It depends how we define unite or union. If we can structure a framework in which brings professionals from different fields together, and they have an opportunity, again, just like now, communicate and express and then kind of decide on certain actions, that's already unity, because it's driven not as part of a sort of ad hoc actions, but part of a systemic approach. And that's what I think is the positive part of this initiative, Future Armenian. But more philosophically, uniting diaspora is a thankless job, because technically it's impossible, right? We talk about dispersion rather than diaspora, and we talk about not a monolithic entity, but more of individuals driven by either their own thoughts and ideas, or as being part of an organization, which is also very important, because organizations in the diaspora in many ways define what we do, how we think, and how we actually interpret our own history. The same facts that seem to be well known, but at the same time that could be important. There's also a need for, if we talk about unification of diaspora activities and such, and energy in general, I think what's also important is the fact that there needs to be communication within the diaspora, among different groups, but also among the different continents and so on. There are initiatives, of course, that try to bring this together, and we are never content with the result. We always want more. And I think the important thing here is that this work continues, right? And then at some point there's going to be gradual improvement. So, naively speaking, yes, optimistically it's possible, but it is a lot of hard work, and it requires a clear message, I think, from Armenia and this framework that I was talking about.
Can we define simple core on which Armenians can be united? Very simple.
I think this is where I'm going to be objectively biased. because of what you mentioned, the diversity in the diaspora, right? How different we are, and drawing roots from different regions, historical regions. This is critical, especially for the Western Armenian diaspora. The difficult part is to get people interested and united in the fact that there's a country called Armenia, surprisingly, right? For a very long time, the concept of genocide and not the concept, but the struggle for recognition of genocide and the memory of genocide was that unifying factor that brought communities together and shared history and such. But I think we need to be moving more towards the fact that there's this country right now and it needs its diaspora. And what diaspora needs to realize is that it needs the country itself as well to maintain identity, right? But there's a difficult part here. It's one thing to define identity and to keep it, but in terms of unification and joint efforts, there needs to be trust to be built between the two groups, and we can go deeper.
So, what is the role of state, of Republic of Armenia?
I think the state plays the most critical role here. It's the foundation upon which everything else comes together. Right? So, but we're not talking about some. And when I talk about this, rather, I don't have in mind any major breakthrough projects or large-scale investments. Very simple things. Cultural engagement is number one, I think. The importance of people living in the diaspora of seeing how things are in Armenia. I mean, and the truth of that, right? There are a lot of good things. There are a lot of difficult things. But this information needs to be continuously sort of transmitted to the diaspora communities, right? And that could be done through cultural ambassadors or cultural events, and these days a lot of things can happen online. But I think the state plays a role in here in organizing these efforts. And of course we can go into much more complex subjects, right? There's a talk about repatriation, but maybe what's needed is not necessarily repatriation in itself, but more closer engagement and scientists coming to spend their summers in Armenia or coming for their research leave or to do their research work in Armenia as well, and engaging with local scientists and researchers and so on.
So do you believe that diaspora in general can be used by Armenia as a soft power?
I don't believe in the word used.
Okay.
So I'm going to probably mention that. So used, to be used, it has a different connotation. But as I mentioned, the two entities need each other and they feed off each other. For Armenia, diaspora is important, but should not really be the only salvation, right? For 20-something, almost 30 years, we've been saying that we've been talking about diaspora as first movers. So people or trailblazers. These are the people, groups, organizations that then bring the rest with them. That's where I think there's some truth to that, and that's why, and that is why indeed there may be some potential in getting this sort of the state of Armenia benefiting from diaspora's potential. But what needs to happen as well for this to be sustained is this cultural engagement. In other words, cultural in many ways, right? In other words, enriching someone's knowledge about their own identity, who they are, what they are, why it is, why is it important for them
to bring
preserve their identity.
Cultural experience from abroad, from diaspora to Armenia.
Yeah, because most of the success, well, again, success is very subjective, but a lot of countries that have large diaspora, they emphasize this cultural engagement. It's not necessarily send us the money, but it's more like, here it is, let's celebrate this holiday. Right, so there's a Greek diaspora day. There's a St. Patrick's Day as far as Ireland, and
in a couple of days.
Right, exactly, coming up, and it's going to be a big affair in New York and Boston, and through that, a lot of people realize, oh, actually, I can. I could probably visit my ancestral country. I could probably do something.
And bring those days from Armenia here. And
right. So the task then is not necessarily. It's almost like when we talk about unity, we're thinking about let's build a building, and that's the diaspora potential. No, it's more like traffic that is moving. Sort of it's the impact, the true impact, beneficial impact for development comes from this continuous engagement. It may be coming from different people, but as long as the path to this engagement is clear, there's a framework around which we can work, then things will, I think, will be better.
Mr. Gevorgyan, thank you very much for your very interesting points. Մենք շարունակում ենք քննարկումները, նոր զրուցում էինք Ալեքսանդր Գևորգյանի հետ, նա Հայաստան Սփյուռք միասնականություն հանձնախմբի անդամ է, տնտեսագիտության դոկտոր, Երևան է եկել Նյու Յորքից, մենք շարունակում ենք քննարկումները, քիչ հետո կշարունակվեն նաև հարցազրույցները։